As we continue through Mark, we come to chapter 3. Now, chapter 3, it seems to be a bit of a summary, and Mark goes over what we've already dealt with in great detail in chapters 1 and 2. So we're going to take chapter 3 a little bit quicker. So Mark 3 retells some of the first two chapters. He talks again about the Sabbath in opposition to Jesus, about healing and exorcism, and about the choosing the apostles and about Jesus' authority. Our reading for today is the first half of the chapter, a bit longer reading than we've had in previous weeks. Mark 3, 1 to 19.
Mark chapter 3. Another time Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they remained silent. He looked around at them in anger, and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake, and a large crowd from Galilee followed. When they heard all he was doing, many people came to him from Judea, Jerusalem, Idumea, and the regions across the Jordan and around Tyre and Sidon. Because of the crowd, he told his disciples to have a small boat ready for him, to keep the people from crowding him. For he had healed many, so that those with diseases were pushing forward to touch him. Whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." But he gave them strict orders not to tell others about him. Jesus went up on a mountainside and called to him those he wanted, and they came to him. He appointed 12, that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach and to have authority to drive out demons. These are the 12 he appointed: Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. To them he gave the name Boanerges, which means sons of thunder. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Zealot, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him.
So we come to look at Mark chapter 3. Opposition seemed to start when Jesus started healing on the Sabbath, where certain people thought he was working. And Mark identifies this as where the main plot against Jesus started. And of course that would lead eventually, it is the beginning of the road to the cross. But interesting here, it's the most unlikely of allies that come together. The Pharisees and the Herodians, or the Sadducees, were normally bitter enemies in their theology and their way of looking at God. But they came together against the Messiah. I'm challenged by this, both in our relations within the church and with those outside. Internally, we can be so quick to label other parts of the church and judge them as heretical or unchristian or wrong. Yes, we can judge the truth on what's in the scriptures, but sometimes we judge the truth on our interpretation of the scriptures, much as the Pharisees were doing. Sometimes we do need to think long and slow. What's going on around us may just be of God. Externally, well, yes, we will obviously experience opposition, and we should expect opposition to the good news of the gospel. If we're anything like Jesus, people will oppose us at times. But are we sometimes a little bit quick to call this persecution? Mark actually here lists a whole 12 apostles. He's already mentioned how some of them were chosen. But what a connection they are. They're all appointed by Jesus, but what a crew. There's foot-in-mouth Simon. James and John appear to have anger issues. Andrew is merely Peter's brother. Philip can be totally pragmatic, wondering how on earth to find the food to feed 5,000. Bartholomew, who? He hardly appears at all. Matthew's the bad boy. He's a tax collector. Thomas is a bit too rational at times and doubts. James, son of Alphaeus, only known as James the Less, an inferiority complex. Thaddeus, Jude, the patron saint of lost causes. Simon the Zealot, a revolutionary. And then there's just, of course, Judas at the end, traitor. How can we be anything but encouraged? God can even use complete oddities like each one of us. And authority. Jesus' authority is shown once again in his teaching, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill. Perhaps we should use that as a test of our Sabbath doings. And obviously in healing and exorcism, his authority is completely shown. This authority was, of course, delegated to the apostles, that they might be with him and learn, that he might send them out to preach and teach, and to have authority to drive out demons and heal. But the question for us today is how much this authority is further delegated down to us as followers and disciples of Jesus. I suspect more than we often think. So what are the questions for us today? Perhaps there's what is our relationship with society? It's a big one in America at the moment, isn't it? And let's face it, it's also a question here. Are we a nation under God or a remnant under pressure? Do we often prefer the kingdom of man to the kingdom of God? How do we relate to the society around us? And as I've said, how much of Jesus' authority that's delegated to the apostles is also delegated down to us? I hope that it should be more than we often show in our day-to-day lives.